All right, well, let's talk about. Welcome to the IU Hoops Halftime Report. I'm Jerod Morris, your Indiana Hoosiers. Currently lead the Nebraska Cornhuskers 40-39 at the half. So let's start out with things I liked from the first half. I think the fact that Indiana was able to get to the free throw line 15 times, the fact that Indiana was able to lead in terms of rebounding, get 7 offensive rebounds, that part of the formula tonight is working. And look, the fact that Indiana has been able to get those rebounds, to get to the free throw line, has helped them compensate for some really poor shooting and some really poor decision making on the offensive end. So, that's nice to see that, as a lot of things aren't working in Nebraska, really going with the defensive strategy that we saw a lot last year. Like, there have been moments of this first half that have reminded me of the Ohio State home game from last year, where they just kind of packed everybody in, and that's really what Nebraska is doing. But even with that, when Indiana has been committed to getting the ball inside, and when they've been able to, good things have happened. Either getting layups, Indiana with 22 points in the paint, or getting to the free throw line. That has been working. I also liked, a stretch that Al Durham had there early, where when everyone else was just kind of settling for outside jump shots, he was really the one guy that was committed to being aggressive, driving, probing the defense, and trying not to just take the first good look, but try and turn a good look into a great look. And he leads Indiana with 9 points. Hasn't done a whole lot here lately, but part of that is he has seemed really focused on getting the ball inside. But I thought really for a stretch there when Indiana's offense was struggling, Al was a guy who was really, from the guard position, trying to do the right things when pretty much every other guard out there was struggling. Let's talk about things I did not like in that first half. And obviously when, talk about what you don't like from this first half, you can talk about the defense. The offense, the shot selection wasn't very good, and there were long stretches of bad play. But, you would take 40 points. That's not awful. It's not great. It's not ideal. Improvements need to be made. But giving up 39 points to this Nebraska team that is playing with one of their leading scorers suspended is not good. And, look, I feel like every time, Indiana has one of these performances at home, one of the common refrains is, well, shoot, they're just making tough shots. They're hitting threes at the end of the shot clock and hitting wild layups. And, yeah, Nebraska has done some of that. But, I continue to say it's amazing how that happens when the opposing team is comfortable. It's amazing just how much more likely they are to hit a tough shot at the end of the shot clock or to, hit a tough layup when they're feeling comfortable out there. And that's what's going to happen when you're not really challenging dribblers and when, guys are comfortable off the catch. And I think, from the perimeter, that's what's happening. And look, I think, this is an interesting contrast of styles because Nebraska is much more of a perimeter-oriented team. They've got 4 guards out there, 4 ball handlers most of the time. But Indiana really wants to play inside. And obviously we're not able to, to make shots. So, Archie tried to go small, and the worst stretch that we had was when he tried to go small the first time he put the bench in. And those guys were just awful. I mean, all of them. They basically sleptwalked through about 3 or 4 minutes, and Nebraska turned an 11-2 deficit into a 16-13 lead. And that should have been the defensive lineup that was able to do the best work against these guys. But Demezi kept getting beaten backdoor. Trace Jackson-Davis is just letting guys cut in front of his face. Armand Franklin and Rob Finney, just weren't very good their first time out there. And so, obviously Indiana countered by going back with the big guys, playing through Joey Brunk and playing through Deron Davis on the offensive end. And I think from an offensive perspective, that's good. That's smart. I think both of those guys have done some nice things offensively, but you're going to struggle defensively. And so it has felt like Indiana has just been in permanent rotation on defense because, again, they just struggle at the point of attack. And, it hasn't just been the big guys. It's not just, Race Thompson who's out there trying to, contain a ball handler who's getting beaten. It's the guards as well. Devontae Green, we've seen him play good defense. Tonight is not good defense from Devontae Green, either on the ball or as a help defender. And so, I think of all the things that have to get cleaned up here in the second half, it is that. This team, if they're going to have an identity of defense, the defense has to be better. And, I would think if your identity is going to be defense, you especially need it to be better at home, to make the opponent uncomfortable to come in here. But too often we see this Indiana team can play really good for stretches, and that stretch at the beginning of the game was fantastic. I mean, I have a note, when it was 11-2, Justin Smith after that oop, I wrote ball game in my notes because I really thought this was going to be a game Indiana would come out and dominate. Just the momentum from getting that win in New York, how bad Nebraska is, and then the way it started, that's exactly what I was thinking. But, this group of Hoosiers, very talented, very capable, and they can spurt really well and can have these stretches of play where they really dig in on defense and they're really playing well, but then it's almost like they relax after that, and they're just not capable of stringing it together. And so all of the issues that have plagued this team when the defense is bad, not being able to guard dribblers, letting guys cut right in front of you, getting beaten backdoor, poor communication. I mean, there have been several times where, Indiana's been in rotations and that's going to happen, but they just haven't communicated. And then no one has gotten to the three-point shooter or, two guys try and go out there. And, so these are things that just have to get cleaned up. And so, we've seen this Indiana team struggle in first halves, come back and play better in the second half, and hopefully that's what we see. I think the obvious keys for this team is, from an offensive perspective, play a lot more like they were playing that last 5-6 minutes of the first half. Really stay committed to getting the ball inside. Be patient. If you're going to get three-pointers, make them inside-out three-pointers. That three-pointer that Rob Finney hit was terrific. Al Durham's three was like that. So that's how Indiana wants to play. And for the guards, try to drive when they have the opportunity, but really stay committed to, moving the ball, swinging it from side to side, allowing the post guys to get in position. And for Deron and Joey and Trace, every time they've stayed committed to posting deep and being strong and carving out their position, good things have happened. And so I think offensively, I'm sure that's what we will do. I think if we do that, it's going to be a recipe for winning this game, even if the defense isn't good on the other end. Now, if Indiana wants to actually come out and dominate this second half, which is what they should do, then the defense has got to get tighter. And it's not like any complicated thing. Indiana just has to play its defense better. And, look, what Nebraska is doing offensively is a particularly kind of wise way to try and beat the pack line. They're trying to spread it out, which gives them driving lanes, and then, it's leaving three-point shooters open. And so, I think, really, frankly, credit to Nebraska, because I feel like their game plan in terms of matching their personnel with where they might be able to take advantage of Indiana has been really, really smart. I think we have better players and we're at home, so we're going to win the game. But, I really think they've been a well-prepared team that is, I think forcing us to work on the exact things we're going to have to work on, because this is how teams are going to play us as we go through the season. So, defensively, Indiana's just got to dig in. They're spreading us out and doing all that stuff, but, when you see a guy just cut right in front of Trace Jackson Davis's face, and when you see at the point of attack, the dribbler's just going wherever they want to go, like, that's just defensive want to. That's your focus and just digging in and doing it. And when Indiana does that, they play well defensively. And some of these issues that crop up where we say, oh, this is them taking advantage of the pack line, it's amazing how that goes away when the guys just dig in and communicate. Like, fundamentally, that has to happen for any defense to work. And to me, that's been the biggest issue that we've seen tonight. And that's why they haven't been able to take, to defend as well as they would want to. So that, to me, is the biggest thing I'm going to be watching in the second half. How does Indiana come out? Do they reestablish, that defensive intensity, that focus, the communication that they need to have? And if they do, this is still a game I think Indiana can and should win by 15, 20 points. I really do. But if they don't, like we've seen so many times, you let an undermanned opponent, an underdog opponent hang around. They get comfortable, they get confident, and now you're in a dogfight. Come out, approach the start of the second half the same way we did the first half, get on a run, but then keep it there. And when you go to the bench, those guys have to bring the intensity. So, I'm tired of that kind of being the thing that we talk about in home games, but it just seems like it is too often. And it's just, nothing that you do on a basketball court is really going to look good when you're just kind of not digging in and when you don't have that focus and communication. So that's what we need to see from these Hoosiers. If we do, I think we can still have, a nice, jubilant, relaxed Friday night post-game show. And if not, it'll be another one that's not going to be very fun, but hopefully it won't be. So anyway, I'll be here. Andy will be here. Let's hope for a much better second half from the Hoosiers. We're better than this. We're capable of more. And I guess on the one hand, it's nice to play like that, and you still score 40 points and you're up by 1. But good Lord, that's the kind of effort that against a really good team, we'd probably be down 7, 8, 9 points. So let's clean it up, Hoosiers. Let's be better in the second half. Thanks for being here, everybody. And I'll talk to you on the postgame show.